Welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving straight into Beyond the Gates 2025, where the unthinkable pact between Leslie and Hayley is shifting from rumor to loaded reality. In a mansion where every mirror hides a confession, their handshake could redraw the power map overnight, weaponizing grief, unsealing vaults of old scandals, and forcing kingmakers to choose a side or get crushed. Is Danny's double game about to spark a wildfire? Will Bill's buried receipts finally surface? Can Nicole outmaneuver Leslie while Ted drifts deeper into her orbit? And what happens to the next generation, Jacob and Naomi's unborn child, when boardroom wars spill into a nursery? From whisper campaigns and tweaked bylaws to accidental leaks at glittering fundraisers, we're tracking the moves, the motives, and the moral costs. Buckle up, subscribe if you haven't, and let's decode why this alliance might be the match that burns Fairmont Crest to the ground. Fairmont Crest is no longer a gilded sanctuary but an echo chamber of scheming, where every wall remembers vows and every lightbulb watches the footsteps of a traitor, and in the static of that chaos, Leslie and Hayley, once planted on opposite ends of the battlefield, are dragged into each other's orbit like two storms feeding on the same low-pressure need, survival. Leslie fights to keep the master key to the family machine, to preserve vetoes over funds, contracts, and board seats, to splint the past with a neat cast of sealed files and silent secretaries. Hayley is shoved to the cliff's edge by humiliation and those incriminating messages that slipped out of an unlocked phone, by the realization she's been turned into a prop on someone else's stage, by the dread that these powerful people will reduce her family to a statistic in a meeting memo. Their anger takes different shapes. For Leslie, the chill of discipline, the habit of lifting a phone and calmly smothering a media fire, the reflex to swap proxies like gloves. For Hayley, a low-burn blaze that survives every sleepless night, a vow to let no man define her with his lies. When two opposing thrusts discover a common enemy larger than pride, a contract without ink writes itself through clenched teeth. In exchange for access to secrets sealed in waxed envelopes, Hayley will offer what Leslie lacks: a clean witness to legitimize a counterstrike, a new face for the cameras, a mother's grief sharpened to clarity, willing to sign anything if it severs the tentacles choking her home. But each footfall on the polished hardwood of the mansion taps out a warning: alliances assembled from hatred hold only until the first downpour of strategy. How long can such a bridge stand before the weight of its builders brings it down? The subplots stop being soft borders and turn into blades laid out on the banquet table. Danny keeps spinning the emotional top between Andre and Bill, performing remorse in public while privately planting breadcrumbs that convince both men they are her storm's true eye, when her real goal is to shove Hayley into an asymmetry, retaliate too hard and she's branded a wrecking ball, refuse to strike back and she's a docile prey. Andre is bled dry by the clash of self-respect and desire. He wants to defend what's right, but fears that any gesture toward Hayley will give Danny the leverage to expose a truth he can't bear to face. Bill staggers between craving and fear, the phone he once treated like a harmless toy transforming into a glass-framed evidentiary bomb that could light up any screen at an auction of reputations. He dreams of a quiet exit yet refuses to see that indecision is the Achilles heel everyone else already grips. Nicole balances pride and hunger for power, watching Ted drift into Leslie's gravity like an anchor-cut boat sliding toward a whirlpool, swearing she'll never witness another life slip by her, yet every move she makes bends under the old memory of being dismissed. Ted is addicted to the drug of validation, to the illusion that proximity to Leslie equals strategy's warm spotlight, and he doesn't notice the golden threads she holds have already tied them both to a stage where a single wink can recast the lead. Anita and Vernon tighten the legal belt around the inheritance funds the way one cinches a waist before stepping into a conference room. They believe in clauses, in paragraphs, in the small print at the page's belly. They believe all ill will can be caged in jurisprudence if they persist. They forget one thing: Leslie doesn't fight with stamps, she fights with time. An email 5 minutes early, a memo accidentally leaked after adjournment, a nameless call to redirect a reporter's gaze, and the whole apparatus of their argument turns redundant while her counterplan swells like a kite catching a sudden gust. Vanessa hugs the perimeter of conscience, desperately believing there is still a way to keep both her self-respect and the surname polished on the threshold, but she also knows every tale in Fairmont Crest ends the same way: the strong rewrite the moral with their own pen. Joey smells the approach of a third hand, one pushing pieces along diagonals, creating unfamiliar collisions in the current of leaks. Instead of sirens, he quietly spins a net of debtors, treating disorder as the scaffold for his private fortress. Martin faces the old equation no one has solved: to reclaim trust, you must declare your innocence with an act of self-binding, but confession might be a doorway to avoid, not to light. And Smitty, who better than anyone knows justice here is a scale beneath a ceiling fan, Waits for Martin's first slip to let the curtain drop and close Act 1. Jacob and Naomi, fingertips brushing a future that seemed within reach, suddenly realize the child not yet born has already been taken hostage by grown-ups' power games. Every choice about hospital, doctor, even which surname to bless the birth with, carries the cool metallic taste of a crooked fight. They don't argue because love has evaporated, but because they're afraid love will be weaponized. Every promise feels like flammable wallpaper. In another corner, Kat, Tomas, and Eva step onto a chessboard where a rumor of a fake pregnancy is dusted like pollen, light, but allergic to the whole system. Every toast at the pre-wedding party has an off flavor, every embrace is suspect for hidden pins, and the ring that once symbolized a vow now behaves like a chain tethering all three to a spectacle the audience hopes ends with a flaming down for the sake of retellable gossip. Chelsea, hemmed in by click-hungry headlines, becomes the media wildcard any faction is ready to slap on the table, and she must choose, become the narrator at the cost of her privacy, or fall silent and let strangers write her ending. The center remains Leslie and Hayley, two straight lines that should never cross, finally intersecting through anger converted into geometry. Leslie wants to use Hayley as a legal bridge, a near outsider whose statement weighs heavy, yet far enough from old crimes to stay unsoiled, to unlatch the safe of internal memos, donor contracts, backroom pledges, and proof of night deals someone was certain no one knew about. Hayley wants to use Leslie as an amplifier, a machine of experience and networks, to hurl back what was hurled at her, to cauterize the veins that feed rumor and to gag the middlemen who skim blood money from her suffering. Both know each step is a gamble, and the chips they're tossing are the last shards of self-respect. Both understand that once they shake hands they lose the right to denial, and if the opposition plants a microphone in the right room, every promise will invert into a confession. How far are they willing to go? Will Leslie rip open the file she's guarded for years to buy a referendum on truth in front of the cameras? Will Hayley grow cold enough to sacrifice women who once called her sister, shoving them beneath the mallet of public outrage to secure a safer horizon for her family? A nameless plan starts to breathe. First, a fundraiser that seems harmless. Guests think they came for photos against a glittering backdrop, but it's actually a lab bench for chain reactions. Who shakes whose hand, who dodges the lights, who has too little to say or says far too much, who exits before the final clink. Next, a proposed tweak to the bylaws, one tiny clause about emergency voting power that most will skip because they're gazing at the big picture, then a video conveniently leaked that shows no faces, only silhouettes and pitch-shifted voices, enough to drive public pressure but not enough to indict. Finally, an anonymous call to a newsroom hinting that the visible is only the tip, and the hidden bulk will eat ink for days if anyone is brave enough to dive. The plan runs on the friction of suspicion, greased by every attempt at self-exoneration that invites someone to speak longer than wisdom allows. Inside that spin, anger doesn't dissipate, it shapeshifts into fuel. Hayley learns to compress pain into momentum, to read rooms like emotional labyrinths where a single misstep exposes the pulse. Leslie learns to concede dark zones on her power chart to capture a brighter whole, to accept volatile variables so long as the trendline climbs the way she drew it. But the moral math hangs like a heavy chandelier. To win, they must mimic what they despise, deploy subterfuge, wound bystanders, except that justice in Fairmont Crest is never transparent. As the chandelier's shadow quivers across the wood grain, a private question slips into each heart. What does victory mean if, when they finally look back, they have become refined versions of the enemy? When night finally seals its envelope, the supporting cast, once background haze, step forward as frontline risks. Danny stands before a mirror, paints on a fresh layer of lipstick as if fastening armor, wondering whether she is playing a game she isn't cold enough to win. Andre sits in his parked car, engine off, door unopened, hands frozen at 12:06 like a man poised to make a U-turn on a street now blinking closed. Bill swipes his phone to erase a thread of texts, then stops, recognizing that deletion only tutors his tongue to tell prettier lies. Nicole opens her calendar and adds a meeting with someone she once dismissed. She finally understands that pride, unguarded by power, is just a shell. Ted drafts a long email, deletes it, drafts a short one, deletes that too, and discovers he no longer knows who deserves the truth. Anita and Vernon print another set of bylaws to underline, but text on paper cannot keep pace with rumor's route. Vanessa scribbles a pocket note to remind herself never to confuse loyalty with complicity. Joey closes a list of names, each an eyelet in the chain he intends to pull until the others fall. Martin stares at his jacket on the chair, weighing whether to put it on and walk into a police station or burn it like a patch of past he's done carrying. Smitty writes a message to no one, saves it as a draft, a ready indictment only lacking a date. Jacob and Naomi press an ear to a belly, listening to a small heartbeat whisper that innocence is counting seconds while adults wage war. Kat, Tomas, and Eva cradle their separate dreams, oblivious to whether each other's dream will arrive as dagger or shield. And Chelsea draws the curtain and watches the city light, asking whether a day will come when she can tell her story without asking permission. If Leslie and Hayley carry this dangerous handshake across to the other side, the power map of Fairmont Crest won't merely be redrawn. It will warp, and every ethical compass will spin itself sick. But if one lets go before the bridge is crossed, who drops first, the lifelong strategist or the woman who just learned to walk through smoke with fire cupped in her palm? At the next fundraiser, when cameras flash and crystal kisses crystal, which piece of evidence will be accidentally left on a linen tablecloth? Which link among Danny, Nicole, Ted, Joey snaps first under the tightening wire? And has a third player already planted charges beneath the floorboards, waiting to press the detonator at the peak of this invincible alliance, to turn every would-be victor into a supporting role in his revenge story? Such questions need no immediate answers. In Fairmont Crest, answers arrive with invoices, and the only question that matters is who will have the funds to pay in full when the bill comes due. And that's where we'll leave the chessboard tonight, balanced on the edge of a blade, with Leslie and Hayley holding a pack that could either cauterize the rot at Fairmont Crest or split the house straight down its marble spine. If their plan breathes through the next fundraiser, expect pressure points to burst, bylaws rewritten in the fine print, a strategic leak that doesn't show faces but ruins alibis, a donor whose signature flips a vote at the last possible minute. Yet every step forward comes at a cost. Danny can't juggle guilt and ambition forever. One misread text, one overheard whisper, and the triangle she spun with Andre and Bill collapses on top of her. Nicole's pride is becoming a currency she spends too fast, while Ted's hunger for legitimacy may be the exact fuse someone else intends to light. Anita and Vernon will double down on paper shields, but what happens when rumor outruns writ? Vanessa's line between loyalty and complicity thins by the hour. Joey's quiet bookkeeping of favors owed looks less like caution and more like an engine warming up. Martin stares at a door marked confession, with Smitty timing the moment it opens. And somewhere beyond the velvet rope, a camera waits for the wrong glance, the wrong glass, the wrong name to slip. So the questions linger like static. Will Hayley trade the last of her softness for safety? Will Leslie surrender a portion of control to win the war she started years ago? Who becomes the first sacrificial piece when this alliance demands a public offering? Does Jacob and Naomi's future get safeguarded, or does their child become the bargaining chip no one wanted to play? If the rumor of Eva's fake pregnancy detonates, does Kat walk away clean or learn that love without leverage is just hope in costume? And when the lights dim, does Chelsea step forward to narrate the truth, or does someone else buy the microphone? If you're still here, you know the game is only warming up. Drop your theories below. Who snaps first, who cashes out, who ascends? Hit like if this breakdown sharpened your radar, subscribe so you don't miss the next turn in the maze, and ring the bell because the next clue might arrive as a midnight memo, and around here, timing is everything.